Hey, it's Flying Kraken here, and today we have some exciting news to talk about. We're at the height of meta fatigue, and people are kind of tired of playing the same old decks for the past year. And people are ready for a drastic change in Hearthstone. And I think Hearthstone is maybe coming to be our savior. They announced an announcement that we will be getting an expansion reveal March 15th, this upcoming Tuesday, and probably some details of what rotation will be and how it will look. Maybe we'll get to see the cards for rotation, or at least a glimpse of them. As for what the new expansion reveal could be, I think the most common rumor going around is that it's going to be Pandaria, and I think there's lots of evidence support that it will be Pandaria. I think the main one being that we have had not only skins introduced into the main Hearthstone game, but we have also had mercenaries from the Pandarian lore introduced, and I think these are big things. I really do. I don't think they just put these in the game for no reason. The part two is that I think that dragons being a big part of the mini set and dragon synergy being a part of the mini set out of nowhere when there hasn't been any dragon synergy just about in a little while, I think has set us up for dragon synergy in Pandaria because dragons are a big part of the Pandarian world with their ancient dragons. I still remember getting the dragon mounts back in the World of Warcraft days. And I think that it's time also to introduce a gigantic lore based character that we haven't seen before. I think that could be on the level of excitement as like Lich King. I think people are tired of seeing the old gods for a little bit, and I think Thunder King Lee Shin is a very good introduction into the Hearthstone world. We already have him as a shaman skin, so it's not like he's just been ignored in any way. It's time for him to become a card, and I think that Pandaria is a good place to go. And like the last thing is that we have seen that a little bit of data mine voiced text that of mentioning monks. And whether we get a monk class, I think that's about a 50-50. I'm not fully convinced that we're going to get one right off the bat this close to Demon Hunter. I know it's been 2 years, but I still think that's kind of rushing it for a new class. But who knows, right? As for rotation, rotation's huge. It always causes a lot of changes, and this time around, Ashes of Outland, Skullman's Academy, Madness at the Dark Moon Fair, and the Dark Moon races will be leaving. All the old gods will be leaving. The corrupt packages, a lot of things important. And today's video, my first video, I would like to go over how I think that Druid should be looked at going forward. The cards leaving, the cards I'd like to see in the rotation in the core set, and how I would like Druid to be designed going forward, at least for my wishes. Starting off our Druid rotation guide, I have laid out all of the cards I feel are important to Druid, and I have divided them up in the categories so we can talk about groups of cards together. Now, the first group I'd like to talk about is the sort of core cards that I feel have been drastically important to Druid over the past year plus, with the outlier probably being Speaker Ghidra, who is just a legendary that I feel has seen plays in aggro decks, in ramp decks, and in a lot of variety of decks. It's been an amazing legendary for the past 2 years that it's been standard. The other three being Overgrowth, Nature Studies, and Lightning Bloom. I think Lightning Bloom, Overgrowth, and Nature Studies were just this package that, as long as Druid had good cards to go with them, that this package was in every single Druid deck that wasn't just hyper aggro. And I think that Overgrowth is a massive card leaving, as is Lightning Bloom. I think that in the rotation they're going to have to get something involving ramp to have other cards they have set up like Guff and future bigger decks for them to survive. They need more ramp outside of the Wild Growth. As for the second set of cards in the slide here, we have the aggro slide, which the aggro can be divided up into two versions. We will see that. So if you don't see Arbor up here, you will see it in the next part. But this is the minion-based aggro deck. We will see Bone Chewer, Brawler, Guardian, Og Merchant, Adorable Infestation, and Grey Bow leaving. I think these are important cards, and the aggro form of Druid. I don't think it's detrimental to the overall style of aggro. I think that they could easily print cards that just make the deck good again. Greybow was, one of legendary. It was a personal favorite of mine. I love the card, but it added a lot of stability and stickiness to the aggro decks where sometimes they couldn't kill Greybow, and no matter how many times they tried to kill your board, Greybow just kept jumping from minion to minion. And I think that this could be a problem going forward for aggro decks to find something that allows them to be as sticky. Composting is definitely something that's going to be around that will let them refill in the future, so keep that in mind. Moving on to our next group of cards, we have the Spell Druid archetype, which has been part of Druid for the past 2 years in some way or fashion. Starting off with Fungal Fortunes and Glowfly, those two came around first. They were part of the Mount Seller Druid. That was when I first started getting into making Druid content, and that deck was very, very good. Glowfly and Fungal Fortunes have gone together so well for so long, and to think that Fungal Fortunes was once 2 mana is absolutely insane. It was 2 mana draw 3 at one point, and Glowfly may go down as one of the best Druid token cards of all time. I mean, it sees wild play and has seen play in standard in some form of Druid since its inception. Then, along the lines, it got Arbor up, and it got Lunar and Solar Eclipse, and it got Gibberling. Gibberling eventually had to have a nerf too, so that's 2 cards in the same archetype that had to be nerfed. And Arbor up was, to me, it wasn't talked about enough about getting a nerf. I felt like Arbor up was a card that should have been in consideration for nerf more. It was just so powerful. It probably would have killed any form of aggro Druid if they had nerfed it, so maybe that is the reason. And Solar and Lunar Eclipse have seen play in every form of Druid that could afford to use them, which has been just about all of them outside of just minion-based aggro decks. Lunar Eclipse is always free, which is wonderful, and Solar Eclipse being able to double that Arbor up or double that Fungal Fortunes or just whatever you wanted to do was so impactful in the game. Don't think this is an archetype that people are going to be too sad about leaving, and I hope that we don't really see a full spell-based Druid archetype for a little bit. I think we need to try some different things with Druid, and spells is not on my list of things to be focusing a whole archetype around. Moving on to my favorite archetype in Druid, that would be Ramp. Whether it be Clown Ramp or Spell-based Ramp, Ramp has been a big part of my Twitch channel and my whole gimmick as a whole. Trying to innovate and make the best ramp that I possibly could has been my thing for the past couple of years, and I hate to say this, but they are going to be losing the most amount of cards out of all archetypes in Druid. Both forms of ramp had a massive amount of cards in the rotation this year, and it's going to need a complete revamp with sets going forward for ramp to exist. Clowns is losing Survival, Guardian Animal, Yasharaj, Teacher's Pet, Twilight Runner, Strongman, and Carnival Clown itself. Spell-based ramp is losing Umbral Owl, Bog Beam, Ironbark, Snarling Ward, Resizing Pouch, Moontouch Amulet, and Yogg-Saron. Not only are you losing the Corrupt package, but you're losing the old gods that you could use. You're losing the Beast package that you use to regain tempo and draw cards and keep yourself alive. You're losing Survival, which made your things bigger than an opponent could possibly deal with. On the spell-based side, we're losing, corrupt cards. We're losing the free-based, I call them ramp spells. Ramp pro spells basically were like Bog Beam and Ironbark benefited you ramping the 7. They were great because you would overgrowth, get the 7 immediately be able to do something for free without costing your mana. Umbral Owl fit great in this part because it got cheaper for every spell that you cast. Snarling Ward maybe go down as in history as one of the best tempo regainers for Druid ever. Gaining that armor and getting an 8-drop when the 8-drop pool has been massively filled with great targets. It's been just filled with everything you possibly get at any situation. I think it's the big loss for Druid, and for Druid to stay around ramping, I think they're going to need something else going forward because they are also losing Overgrowth like we talked about in the last slide. Now that we've seen what Druid is losing, I would like to talk about what Druid cards I would like to see going forward, or what archetypes to be pushed for Druid going forward. First, I think that spells in the core set for Druid have to be better. If they want to push choose ones or certain archetypes for Druid, they need to put some of these back into the format for Druid. And cards I think are in consideration for me at least are Jasper Spellstone, Crystal Power, Swipe, Branching Pass, Ferocious Howl, Rising Winds, Naturalize, and Wrath. With Branching Pass being the probably least likely of the cards to see. I think, even though I think it'd be fine, honestly, I think it is a card that allows for flexibility in no matter what Druid deck you play. But I'd like to see some efficient removal from Druid. I know they went this route of Feral and not having any removal for Druid. But I'd like to see Jasper Spellstone. I'd like to see Swipe back in the format. I've been pushing for Ferocious Howl to be a core set card for Druid for the past 2 years. I would really like to see that. And there are probably some Druid spells that I'm missing. These are just the ones that I feel would make a good thing for Druid going forward. I also think that Wrath is something, if they're going to push this choose one thing again, they're going to need something like Wrath in the format. And Wrath has always been a very, very flexible, good card for Druid, never overpowering. Same with Rising Winds. Rising Winds would be another good choose one for the pool of cards that they are pushing. The other archetype, I think, with Pandaria maybe being the option, but Dragon support is probably coming no matter what set we get, is Dragons. I think Dragons are something I'd like to see, and these are mostly neutral stuff. I think Twilight Guardian, Emerald Explorer, Breath of Dreams, Primordial Drake, and Dragon Maw Scorcher are cards that I'd like to see just off the top of my head. I think this is a good way to give Druid back away the ramp and Breath of Dreams without having to put something like Overgrowth in the format. So we'd give us Breath of Dreams, Wild Growth, and Guff. Like good ramp, but not something overwhelming like Overgrowth was. And Dragons are always a fan favorite. People love them, and I think Primordial Drake is probably the least likely of the Dragons on this picture that would make it. It was such a powerhouse back in the day. I'm sure it would be at least good today. I almost put Best Girl Ysera on here, but I really doubt that Ysera that we know that gave us the portals would make it back. People didn't like that card as overall, I don't think, even though it is a staple to my channel. But I would like to see another Ysera and or Dragon aspects in the core set, whether it's the ones we got this past year or another rendition of them. I'd like to see that going forward. And for our final set of cards, I just kind of lumped together all the past Druid legendaries and Ziliacs that were class-defining legends in their own right. And I think that Druid needs a legendary like this from the core set. I think that I don't want another Cenarius buff or re-put in the core set. I think Cenarius is very boring. It's the first Druid legend we ever had. They buffed it. It still saw like 0 play. I think we need something better from that. And I understand that some of these are super powerful, but the options I would at least present to them to think about is Kun the Forgotten King, Hadronox, Gonk, Fandral, War Druid Lodi, and Ziliax. I didn't put Gloop on here because I think Gloop would honestly just be way too powerful. But here's what I'm thinking. I think that Kun always represented what Druid want to do most: cheap mana and gain armor. I think it does that well. Hadronox, that's all dependent if they plan on going that route with taunts this next come up year. But I don't see them going taunts this future year, so probably not. But cards like Gonk, we already have Quest Druid, the Guff Quest, and I think that Gonk would add an extra layer to that deck of what you could do with it. You could create a lot of momentum and kill people out of nowhere with it. Same with Fandral, War Druid, Lodi. I think that those are legendaries you consider if you are truly going all in on the choose one aspect of Druid. I think Fandral would go wonderful with that and Wrath back in the format. War Druid Lodi was Um, Always, usable. Of course, it was more usable in things like Quest Druid because you get all forms combined. So if they added a way for you to do that again, then maybe so. But I think that Druid really needs a legendary to define its core set. And I think that if we got Cenarius, then I would be severely disappointed. I'm hoping for something like one of these legendaries right here. I'm a classic Kun and Hadronox person, but I think Gonk and Fandral and Wardrow Lodi would be more likely. And as for Ziliax, I put Ziliax on here because I just want to do all the legendaries in one go. I think Ziliax should be in heavy consideration for just a neutral legendary in the core set. People love the card. I think the card is far less powerful by itself when there's not a ton of magnetic things to put it on. I think that's one of the aspects in the original playing of Ziliax that really gets overlooked a little bit, was that there was just a ton of mechs you could put it on regardless of what deck you were playing. And as long as I keep that under track and don't have a ton of mechs you can play, I'm sure it will be fair and balanced to at least some extent. And this kind of wraps up my video for what I'd like to see from Druid. So to wrap up things, I would like to see Druid get some form of ramp. I don't want them to take all ramp out of Druid. I'd like to see Breath of Dreams or a new card. Maybe they even put the 3 mana 3/1 that ramped you a mana. Like, it's just some form of ramp. I would like them to introduce more spells back into the format for Druid that are just consistently good, like Wrath, or I wouldn't mind seeing Naturalize again, just something to kill something big. Maybe even Mulch. Swipe needs to return. Maybe an upgrade to Swipe. Who knows? Maybe make it like an extra damage across the board or to the face or something, 5 damage. Who knows? But these are a bunch of ideas. There'll be more in the future. We should find out a lot Tuesday. I can't wait for Tuesday, and can't wait to be making more videos for you guys. So don't forget to click that like button and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to me. I will be try to be making at least one video a week on something Hearthstone. And see you guys next time.